welcome to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and we are back for another episode of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and this is season 14, episode 18. This is reunion part 1, extended and uncensored version. So I did watch the Peacock version of this reunion. So far so good. Yeah, so far so good when it comes to reunion. And what I will say is I don't know. I'm looking forward to watching the other two parts of the reunion, but as you already knew, I think I mentioned in the last video, I was very underwhelmed by the season as a whole. So I do just want to see what transpired that led to Garcelle not wanting to be part of the show anymore, and for her storming off of the set. I'm assuming we're going to get that either in I think we're going to get that either part 2, part 3. We'll see. I mean, we're definitely going to get part 2 or part 3 because we didn't get in this part of the reunion. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. This review, by the way, won't be too long. So we started off, as we always start off, where all the women are arriving at the set of the reunion and they're all getting ready. And the women are kind of clicked up. We have certain women that are checking in with each other. So Erica and Kyle are checking in on each other. It kind of is set up similar to how the after show was. So we have Erica and Kyle checking in on each other. And then we have Dorit and Bozema are basically just clicked up the whole entire time. And then we have Garcelle and Sutton checking in on each other. And so that's kind of how things are going. And we also find out that in between the season ending and the reunion, Kyle and Garcelle are no longer good. They were good and then they're not. And a lot of it has to do with what happened after the show aired. So a lot of things got rehashed that people were not aware of. So that's kind of what we are going with. And anyway, so then from there, they do arrive on the set all on time. They actually look very cohesive for once as a cast. And again, as I mentioned before, when it comes to the reunion fashions, I am for a cohesive theme for the reunion. I hope we continue that because it looks so much better when they do that. So anyway, they are all on the set, and Andy does the pleasantries as he normally does, and then he asks what's people's intentions. And Kyle has her crystal saying that she's being dramatic, of course, about the whole entire thing. And Garcelle is trying her best to try to clear the air because Garcelle can tell that Kyle has an issue with her. And because it's not the other way around. Kyle has an issue with Garcelle. Garcelle doesn't really have the issue with anyone else. And that should have been a hint that Garcelle, girl, you in danger. Anyway. And they start actually talking about the first segment. The first segment is Dorit and PK's divorce. They do the whole entire clip of showing how they had the anniversary thing on the show, and then from there, now they're not in a good place. And I'll be honest with you, maybe this is the reason why this first part I just wasn't moved, because honestly, let me keep it real. Dorit's boring. I don't find Dorit interesting. Even when she was going back and forth with Kyle, I think that was the only thing that was interesting about her, is when she was going back and forth with Kyle. But everything else, I'm kind of just bored. And I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but that's kind of how I feel. I'm just kind of bored with it. Anyway, so then basically we hear everyone's thoughts when it comes to Dorit's divorce and how some of the women think that Dorit was putting on for the camera. Kyle definitely says that she felt that way. And Dorit's like, wait, why do you feel that way? She's like, no, that's just how I feel. Because it came up about, did Dorit do extra on the camera because she knew she was in trouble as far as getting fired from the show? And Kyle's like, that's just my opinion. And so Kyle's standing on it. And so we can see here that Kyle and Dorit are still not really back to where they were. And we see previews of the next part of the reunion. They're still not really good. So there's also that. And then from there, somehow it goes into Kyle versus Dorit because of that. And then also because the question came up about Dorit expressing to everyone about PK being an alcoholic. And both Sutton and Kyle both agreed that it came off kind of exploitive and not really her caring that he has a problem. And even when PK was on camera, he himself never said he was an alcoholic. He said he got sober. So saying that someone's an alcoholic, putting down someone's jacket without them actually saying it, that's kind of not okay. And so Dorit is still standing by what she said. She's like, you know what? PK behind the scenes said that that's his problem, and she got permission from him to say it. But then later on, Dorit contradicts herself and says that PK doesn't, because Andy asked an additional question like, so where is he at when it comes to his sobriety now? And Dorit's answer was like, well, PK says I can't speak about it anymore. So that tells me that, girl, what the ladies are accusing you of, Kyle and Sutton especially, PK's on that same side, because PK actually, so even though he was not at the reunion, he did send a message to the group and stated that he was very offended by all the things that Dorit said on the show, and that mainly in particular about him and his fatherhood. And basically, Dorit is not taking any accountability. She doesn't feel bad. She's taking no accountability. She's like, it is what it is. And then also to a certain point, Kyle's even like, look, you've changed this season, especially. I don't know this version of you. And PK is saying the same thing. And when being asked about that, Dorit's like, look, I've been with PK for 14 years, so I hope within 14 years I'm not the same person. So she kind of still just dodges answering the question. And I don't know, I'm kind of over this thing. I'm kind of over the Dorit of it all, because it's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just kind of bored with it. And then I noticed Dorit and Kyle kind of got into it a little bit. It was because Dorit it was more of a Dorit thing going after Kyle. And then Kyle's like, look, there's going to be a time when we actually talk about our issues. We don't need to talk about that right now. And they kind of touched upon it a little bit because the text came up about her, and the text, it came up again. And then also we have, on top of that, we also have Dorit and Sutton talking a little bit. And Dorit's like, look, I don't want to necessarily talk about this whole thing with, because basically Andy asked Sutton, hey, are you worried for how things can potentially go when it comes to Dorit and her divorce? And Sutton was like, yes. And Sutton's like, and then Dorit's like, how are you worried about someone you don't even like? And it's like, Dorit, she doesn't like you because of how you are. I think Sutton wants to like you, but like, because you are just the way you are, it's impossible. And Sutton, for the most part, took the high road, did not take the bait, and didn't really go back and forth with Dorit on this. But I guess that's kind of overall this season, not just with this reunion. That has been my issue with Dorit. And I hate to say this, I'm kind of siding with Kyle with this, is that this whole entire season was basically thirsting for a moment. That was her the whole entire season. Thirsting for a moment, thirsting for conflict, just coming off super desperate. And maybe that's why I'm just kind of done with Dorit. I'm hoping I don't really need Dorit to be on next season, but we know she's going to be back because she has nothing else. So there's that. Anyway. So then the next segment, we then go into talking about Bose. And Bose coming in with the splash. And Bose, for the most part, her segment was fairly short. She talks about how she actually met with Garcelle prior to the season to help her navigate the dealing with the ladies. And I'm glad that Bose did give Garcelle that credit. So I am kind of questioning some of the alleged reports I heard, but I don't know. We'll find out what happens later. But so then Bose is just kind of like, yeah, I went to Garcelle trying to get the tea on what's going on with these ladies, and Garcelle was, nice enough to say, hey, I want you to form your own opinion. I'm not going to tell you about what these ladies got going on. And I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of don't, looking back, I don't know if that was a good idea. I kind of, to a certain degree, wish maybe Garcelle would have given her some tea about the Dorit situation. But then I guess it wouldn't have mattered because even when it came to the show, that I guess it doesn't make sense to me to a certain degree because Bose also does admit that she watched the show before she went on the show. So she did her homework. So I don't think she even really needed Garcelle to talk to her about the things. But I don't know. I feel like this answer may be a set. I don't know. I have questions about this, and I think we need to come back to this come part 2 or part 3 because her saying that she talked to Garcelle before this show started and Garcelle gave her some advice or really just kind of said, hey, figure it out. I don't know if Bose is going to use that against her later on. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think Garcelle could have done one or the other. She could have did what she did, or she could have been like, hey, I got you, sis. We're going to be the dynamic duo. And I feel like a lot of us, at least us melanated folks, we wanted that. We wanted the I got you, sis. But instead we got what we got to a certain degree. Although at the same time, I am glad that Bose has her own opinion, is doing her own thing. I just hope that what I heard happened didn't happen. And shout out to Kimpire, because that's where most of us heard the things from. But I just want to see how the rest of this plays out before I form my full true opinion. And if you don't know what that's about, I would check out Kimpire, or you can wait to see how things unfold. And for me, that's kind of what I'm trying to do, but I'm still have some of the things I've heard in the back of my mind. That's kind of what's happening here. But anyway, so then besides talking about that, Bose and the Keely situation comes up. And Bose is standing 10 toes down like, look, the way my love life is my love life. I don't need anyone else to like give me an opinion on that. That's what it is. Because the discussion about Keely being a red flag, they kind of went back and forth on that. Not so serious though, because even Erica said she has some concerns when it came to the talking about the reproducing, but not the I say I love you yet thing. And they kind of took that with stride. And then even Sudden, girl, I'm already seeing how things are unfolding. I'm just full transparency. So Sudden also mentioned something about him possibly being a red flag because of him being a certain age, never married, no kids. And I do agree with Sudden. That kind of is a red flag. But I've noticed when Sudden was talking to Bose about it, she was backpedaling a bit. And throughout this first part of the reunion, Sudden was doing a lot of that. And you know what else that stood out to me that she was doing? Not having Garcelle's back and having Kyle's back over Garcelle. Just saying. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of how Sudden was this first part of the reunion, and we just saw little sprinkles of it because we're not really at Sudden's segment, and Yeah. I don't know if anyone else observed it, but I did. So anyway, moving on. So then also the other thing that came up is really Bo's and Dorit's friendship and how the ladies felt about it. So Garcelle, because all the ladies kind of had like an issue with it a little bit. And the one thing that they kind of played upon was Garcelle saying like that Dorit's up, up Bose's like lady parts. I don't want to say the words on because we're on YouTube. But like and Garcelle's like, look, I was kind of kidding. Like the only time that I was kind of bothered by like you really just hanging out and talking to Dorit the whole entire time was really at like the Oceanside, because you were literally talking, having your own conversation for over an hour. And on the edit show, we didn't realize it was that long, but yeah, that would be annoying. And so that's why Garcelle was like, look, that's why after a while I was like, are we not supposed to be part of this conversation? Because we're like on a show right now. Like we're working. And so I can see how that would be very, very annoying. And also too, based off of how the rest of the season played out and what my personal opinion is of Dorit of being team too much the whole season, I could see how that would be very annoying. Just saying. And so, um, really, at this point, Garcelle and Bose don't really have any issues. And really, Bose doesn't really have any issues with anyone at this point, except for then we move on to Bose and Kyle. And the conversation about Bose saying that Kyle is cold. And Bose, girl, not you making me think Kyle is correct a little bit in what she has to say, because Kyle produces receipts. She's like, look, I actually went to meet you in your room. And Bose is like, oh, I don't remember that. It was on camera that's what happened. And then the other thing is that Kyle mentioned was like, I went and saw you when you were sick, and we talked about, what's going on in my marriage. And then Bose's retort was like, well, no, we mainly talked about Dorit. She's like, but, and then Kyle was like, well, you also said you didn't remember that because you were heavily medicated. And she's like, well, that's true too. And it's like, Bose. I will say this. The other thing that I observed in this reunion is that Bose comes off as like this strong girl and all that, but I don't think she really wants it with Kyle actually, because Bose got kind of shut down a couple times when it comes to her theories about Kyle being cold during this reunion. And so Bose said something that was kind of interesting, like, well, I don't remember. It must not have been a memorable conversation. And Kyle just laughed it off. And so there was really nothing that Bose can really do to retort that. And so that kind of got left on the table kind of awkwardly, in my opinion. So it seems like they're okay, but I understand now why they're okay, because what happens this next piece of this reunion is Garcelle was in danger, and I mean danger. All right, so the next the next segment that we're talking about is, let me look here. Garcelle has her own segment, and they show her with the beach house situation. They kind of just do, and honestly, I'm kind of curious what you guys think, but when I was watching this, the way this segment was put together, it was almost like a goodbye to Garcelle segment before the goodbye happened. I don't know. It seemed like it was more of a wrap up. I didn't see anything being obvious. And then the other thing that I kind of was a little disappointed about this season that I noticed happened during the season, they even showed it in the clip and we never expound on that, is I wanted the cameras to follow Garcelle more to navigate her new life now, because Garcelle says that she is struggling with trying to find her identity as a woman now that she is in her 50s. She has this career. She basically has this resurgence. And so this version of her is not the same version of her she used to be. And she's having a tough time navigating that. And I'm kind of irritated that we never really got more out of her when it came to that, because it's very relatable. Even Kyle agreed with it. And that was honestly where we thought Kyle and Garcelle were going to have a good relationship this season. And they did for the most part until it fell apart towards the end, because, a lot of it had to do with Sutton and her thirst for Kyle, and Garcelle just being annoyed with that whole situation, and the lack of Kyle's transparency, but she thinks she's being transparent when she's not. So that's kind of what I found disappointing about the season. Also with Garcelle, I feel like a lot of it was Garcelle gave them things, but they just didn't really care enough to do much with it. Like, for example, when I'm seeing now, when we're watching this, leading up to this reunion, they filmed way more than what they filmed, but the producers put what they put together. So it's just kind of, to me, a little frustrating. Like, they went all in on the Dorit train and just ignored other things. And then they went in on the Erica and her home decor thing. And honestly, I didn't care. I was bored when it came to that as well. So it was cute for an episode, but they dragged it out for 3 episodes. That should have been just 1 episode. And with Garcelle and what she has going on, we didn't get to even see what she was doing work-wise more. I would have been more interested in knowing more about that, but we didn't get to that. And even in this highlight of showing what she did this season, we didn't get to all her jobs that she has going on. And so I'm just kind of like, how are you going to have a Garcelle on your cast and not highlight all her career moves? I mean, isn't that kind of what Housewives is about? To me, they kind of did a disservice when it comes to Garcelle. They could have easily had treated Garcelle similar to a Candy, where we see all the different things Candy got going on. We couldn't do the same thing for Garcelle? I don't know. Was it just because the other things that Garcelle's going on is with another network? At the end of the day, you still could have told a story without going too much into detail. We only really got 1 or 2 scenes of her being on set of what production she was working on. And then we only got 1 or 2 scenes about her son modeling. And I know the other son didn't want to be on TV, but there's things that we could have went through to kind of expound on that. I don't know if maybe she wasn't allowed to talk about it. I don't know. But I guess there was a lot left on the table, and this reunion made it a little bit more obvious for me. And I just think with Beverly Hills, they have a lot more work to do. Especially since today, full transparency, I watched both. I rewatched Real Housewives of Atlanta again this morning, and then I went and watched Beverly Hills. And although Atlanta isn't what it used to be, to me, in my personal, I think it's a better show than Beverly Hills is. I was kind of bored with Beverly Hills towards the end. The first 3 or 4 episodes, it was okay. But then that's what we got the whole entire time. It's okay. I thought we were going to get it build up, and we never got it. So anyway, I know I went off on a tangent, but let's continue on with the rest of Garcelle's segment. Okay, so then back in Garcelle's segment. So with Garcelle's segment, it continues on with, hold on, I lost my spot. Okay. We go into Erica kind of saying that she's been wanting to get more from Garcelle and Sutton, and more of the real life. And Garcelle's like, I went through my divorce before this show, so I don't have that to give to you. And really, I just wish I love that Garcelle carries herself with class, but to certain people on the show, particularly Erica, she needs to be told she needs to be told off. She really does. She needs a Dorinda that will get her together on the real quick so she can just go on the mute challenge. Because otherwise, with Erica, she's just going to be, well, how she is. So, because honestly, if that would have been me, and this is one of those things I was like, oh my gosh, Garcelle, I wish you would just tag me in for a second here. Because it's like, Erica, I'm sorry that my life isn't a hot mess, is falling apart like you, Kyle, and Dorit. Maybe that's y'all karma. My life is good. It's golden. I don't know what to tell you about that. Like, that'll be what I would have said in response, but that's just here or there. That's just a side note. Because Erica, is given that you're jealous that Garcelle doesn't have the trials and tribulations of life that you have, that's being like shown on camera. And also too, Garcelle, I guess, because Garcelle just isn't a reader. That's one thing about Garcelle that's always been a problem. She's not a reader. She's not a fast response person. Because it's like, we talked about my oldest son having a drug problem. So how is that me not sharing my life? That'll be certain things I would say there, because yeah, Garcelle has shared her life. It's just, she doesn't have day-to-day drama that like a Kyle and a Dorit and you would have, because she's not going through a divorce. And then Erica fixed her mouth and said, well, I just wish you were more interesting. That's all. And it's like, Erica, respectfully, you're not interesting at all. You didn't do anything this season other than showed us you redecorating a rental. Which, how is that a flex? Respectfully, how is that a flex? Like, honestly, that's giving brokey energy, because you don't even own your renter. Like, especially for this type of a show. I don't know. I was kind of irritated when she said that about, Garcelle not being interesting. It's like, girl, take several seats. Anyway, and I can even tell Garcelle right then and there, she was like, I think that was one of the things right there where she was like, oh, I thought we were friends. And Garcelle was and Erica's like, well, no. I mean, I didn't mean it. It's like, Erica kind of tried to backpedal a little bit, and she's like, and Garcelle's like, no, we're not friends if you feel that way. We're just not. I thought we were friends, and clearly we're not friends. And so I think that was one of the things that happened in this episode that blindsided her. And, oh, I forgot to mention during the Bose segment, when Bose and Garcelle were kind of going back and forth about, Bose being friends with Dorit, Bose tried to put on Garcelle's jacket that Dorit was manipulating her. And I don't think Garcelle necessarily said that. I think us as the audience said that. And I notice when it comes to a lot of these women, particularly on the Fox Force 5 side of things, and sorry, I am including Bose in that because I think she's part of them now. I think they're all clicked up now. At least the way this is looking so far. They are they're kind of attacking Garcelle, and they end up attacking Garcelle in this first part based off of what social media has said versus what she has actually said herself. Because the tricky thing is Garcelle does say what we're all thinking a lot of times, or what a lot of us are thinking. But because it's so similar to what social media is saying, when the ladies like clap back at her, they're giving her response based upon what someone from social media said and not necessarily what she herself has said. And in one of the examples when Bose and her were going back and forth a little bit was saying that she said that she feels that basically Dorit is manipulating Bozema, is manipulating her. And Bose clapback, she's like, if you feel that way and you feel like that I could get manipulated that easily, that is an insult. And really that reflects on how you feel about yourself. And I didn't really understand that clapback because I was like, that doesn't really, how would that reflect on how Garcelle feels about herself? But really Garcelle's response to most of this was like, okay, you got it. Like Garcelle was just, You could tell Garcelle was checked out at this reunion because she had no fights or F's to give. She's like, okay, you got it. She just was saying that to like almost everyone when it came to them trying to go back and forth with her. She's like, you got it. You got it. I was like, oh my gosh. And it really started to mainly happen once she realized Sutton didn't have her back. Once she realized Sutton is just kind of sitting there, deer in the headlights, she's like, oh, okay, I see what this is. This is a Garcelle takedown. And then next we kind of go back and forth. It's Garcelle versus Kyle. And Garcelle and Kyle just feel so personally attacked because Garcelle is questioning why. And she's asking the question that we all want to know. Why can't we talk about Morgan this season, but we were able to talk about her last season? And Kyle explains it during this reunion, but like, the thing is, why did it take you till the reunion to explain it? Why you couldn't talk about her? That's what is so annoying about Kyle. You drag this whole thing out, and you could have literally articulate that on camera, as you just did now. We didn't need the whole season. If you would have said it then and there at the very beginning, what you just said now, I don't think Garcelle would have anything to keep asking you about it about. And so Garcelle was like, I really wanted to be friends with you, Kyle, but like, I can't be friends with someone who won't open up to what's going on in their life. And I agree with Garcelle because Kyle is clearly not being transparent, but she's yet trying to play in our face. It's like, but you're not being transparent. You talk in codes. You kind of somewhat share things, but then you contradict yourself. Like, for example, we still don't know what caused you and Mo to have your problems because you only share part of the story, but not the whole. You actually share. I feel like she shares the ending of the story, but we don't know how he got there. And so it's so confusing. And so we're just kind of like, I don't know how you got here. Like, it doesn't make sense. And then she also mentioned that Kyle reached out to her behind the scenes about it, telling her everything, more in detail what was going on. And Garcelle was like, well, that's part of my problem with you. Why are you reaching out to me behind the scenes and not in person? And I noticed when this was happening, Dorit had such a smirk on her face because Dorit called this out during the reunion last year. Because this is what Kyle does. It's very clear to me this is what Kyle does. She does this thing where she will be transparent to you actually in real life, but like on the show, she is holding back and not sharing the whole story. So she's basically doing what she says others should not be allowed to do, but she can do it. But no one else is calling her out on that other than, well, now, I mean, pretty much now Garcelle's calling her on that, and Dorit has called her out on it last season. And this is a part of me that wish Dorit and Garcelle would have got on a good foot a little bit earlier on, maybe at the end of last season, because if them two would have both called her out on this, Kyle would not have had a leg to stand on. Especially if you would have Bose on that side, and then you have Sutton there too. The only person that Kyle would have is Erica. But we know that's not how it went. But that's just in my dream little world of like how I wish things would have went. But that's neither here nor there. And so, and then Kyle is just hanging on to the idea that she's so irritated about Garcelle's comment about saying, if you want to be a lesbian, be who you are. And Garcelle's like, but that wasn't an asshole comment. And Kyle, I'm kind of offended by you thinking that was an asshole comment. So in your head, do you think that there's something wrong with being a lesbian? Because this is 2025. If you, in your head, think that Garcelle was insulting the idea of you possibly being a lesbian on camera, that's more of a you problem. That's not a Garcelle problem. I'm just saying. So I was taken back by that a little bit, and I I don't know. Kyle and her weird rational reason, it never is rational, and she always thinks it is, but that's neither here nor there. And so while all this is happening, and then when Garcelle actually called out that inside conversation that happened, Garcelle said she talked to Sutton about it, and Sutton said, yeah, Sutton sided with Kyle at this moment instead of what she actually said. And Garcelle had to call out. She's like, that's not what you said, Sutton. You said that seemed calculated. And I noticed Sutton would not own up to that. And I'm like, oh no. Sutton, girl, the way you are flipping on Garcelle right now, between Kyle, Erica, and now Sutton, I see why Garcelle is done. I see why she's done. They really did flip on her in this reunion badly. They did it at the very beginning of the reunion. They didn't even waste any time. And I have a theory to why, but I also want to see how it plays out. Part of me's thinking the reason why they want her to not be able to stop them from going against Sutton. It's a way for them to get her out of the way so they could go after Sutton. And I feel like Sutton realizes it, but at the same time, it's like, Sutton, if you're such close friends with Garcelle, you would, one, have her back, and then you would, two, not be so self-absorbed thinking that you're in danger and not paying attention to the fact that your girl just got she just got blindsided and you did nothing. And we'll get more into that during the break, but I was already irritated watching this first part of the reunion, to be honest with you. Anyway, so then from there, it goes into Garcelle versus Dorit, and they're still talking about this stupid robbery again. And Dorit is still doing her thing where she's weaponizing what social media said and saying that is what Garcelle said, yet that's not what Garcelle said. Garcelle said she feels like this was a setup, and she doesn't think Dorit has anything to do with it. And Dorit is still on this, has his bone thinking that Garcelle thinks that PK has something to do with it. And Garcelle is saying, I didn't say PK had anything to do with it. But Garcelle, I could tell by how you said that. It was left to interpretation. And I think Dorit was calling it out. It definitely was left to interpretation that if Dorit had nothing to do with it, then who would have something to do with it? I'm just saying. But Garcelle is still saying, look, I still didn't say that. The fact that you're accusing me of something that I didn't say that. So they're going back and forth and back. And they really don't get anywhere with it. But I will say this. Bose did have Dorit's back, of course. And she was like, that's a really messed up thing to say. Now, she didn't say what I thought she was going to say about it. But she still was just like, that's a real messed up thing to say. Because really, outside of Dorit and her, it is a messed up thing to say. Let's be truthful. It is. Because that's someone that you work with. That's someone that you know personally. Now, is it a messed up thing for someone like me to say? No, because I don't know these people. So there's partially a difference there. It's me judging what I see on the show. I don't know these people in real life. But I think in Garcelle's case, it is kind of a messed up thing to say. But Garcelle is standing on business. She's like, nothing's changing over here. I said what I said is not being changed. It's my opinion. We can agree to disagree. The end. I'm done talking about it. I was like, oh. I was glad that she said it. She's like, I am done talking about it. We're not talking about it anymore. I was like, so at the end of the day, Garcelle still handled herself just fine. And it literally was like everyone was against her in this part of the reunion, but she handled them one by one. Just saying. So then Andy wraps it up. She's like, looks like we're back. I thought you guys were in a better place, you and Dorit, but it looks like we're back to where we were before. And, Garcelle agreed. She's like, yeah. And that's how it always is. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And that's back to where they are. And so then on that note, then they go off to lunch. And then when they go off to lunch, we have Kyle and Erica are in the room talking together about what just happened. And then we have Dorit and Bose in the room talking together about what just happened. And Bose is like, that's a really messed up accusation to say. And Dorit's like, yeah, it really is. And I mean, they really weren't saying much there. But what stood out to me the most out of everything, was Garcelle was fuming going to her trailer. And then Sutton came in there kind of just like, I don't know. It was obvious to me that Sutton knew that she messed up, but yet she was not going to acknowledge that she messed up. And so when she got in there, she's like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that with you. I'm in so much trouble. I am in so much trouble. She did ask a little bit of how Garcelle was feeling, but then she went straight off to talking about herself and how she's going to be in so much trouble versus really even knowing or even noticing that she did not have Garcelle's back at all during this part of the reunion. She didn't do what Garcelle has done for her throughout the years. And it was even called out during when she was going back and forth with Kyle about that. And yet Sutton was just on mute challenge the whole entire time, as if they weren't even just talking about her. And yeah, Garcelle the whole entire time is just fuming. She's so upset. She's like, she didn't call that out yet. One of the things I think that she was completely blindsided by with this reunion was Erica. Because that came out of nowhere. Because it really did. Erica just did a sniper thing and just was like, I just don't find you interesting. And Garcelle the whole entire time is just like saying, F Erica, F Erica, F Erica. And that's how the first part of the reunion ends. Like, Garcelle and Erica, they are not good. They'll never be good. I don't see it ever being good. And what gets me about Erica and her audacity of all this was, you are the same woman that cussed out her son and is one of the reasons why her son won't film on this show. But you have the audacity to say that she's not sharing enough of her life, and you're part of the reason why she's not sharing it. But you have the audacity to call her not interesting. And Garcelle did something that most of us wouldn't have done, and that's forgive your ass for what you did to her son and not put hands on you and not cuss you the freak out, because you deserve that. You deserve that. And honestly, to a certain degree, I'm glad that Garcelle is the way she is, fancy, and handles things the way she did, because karma is catching up with Erica right now as we speak with all these lawsuits. So it's all good. And she might be in some trouble coming up soon, because apparently Tom ain't got the money, so they're trying to get it from Erica. So neither here nor there. But yeah, I was kind of heated watching this reunion, because I don't like how throughout all these years, Garcelle has showed up for Sutton and she's never gotten in return. And this was the time where she needed it the most, and she didn't get it. So yeah, but that does conclude this part 1 of the reunion. Let me know what y'all thought of the reunion. Yes, obviously, I'm about to be full transparency. I am very biased. I am very much a Garcelle fan. Not a stan, a fan. I've always loved Garcelle. So it just is what it is for me. So my views of it is going to be slightly skewed. I know they have a bias, but it is what it is. And honestly, if it wasn't for Garcelle, Bose wouldn't even be on this show, because Garcelle was the first Black cast member of this show and had the tough discussions that allows other Black people to be on this show. So Anyway, that does conclude the review. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and I will see you next time. Bye.